Salut tout le monde.
Salut. So today we're going to talk about inversions and when you ask a question, like why you shouldn't use that, why most French people aren't going to say that, and how it's kind of awkward.
So just a disclaimer, what we like to talk about on Street French is really the spoken French. So everything we're going to talk about here is probably not what they're asking from you on a FLE or FLE test, right?
Yeah, if you're in a French class, definitely don't use this. It's probably going to be marked wrong. I remember I wrote something like on fait quoi. I wrote that down like on a French exam, and it was totally wrong.
When you hear French people speaking, they never use like inversions. So
yeah, do you have some examples of inversions? Like,
well, yeah, for example, tu parles français, and I guess you would learn parles-tu français? Like, do you speak French?
Yeah, so that's what we mean when we say inversion. Like, you're gonna put the verb first. So yeah, that's what we're gonna talk about today, and we're gonna explain to you why most French people don't speak like that in everyday life. Written down, it's different, okay? Like when French is really formal and like a business email or something, maybe you might see that.
Guys, we have some ebooks and e-courses you can learn French with, but first,
make sure you try our free e-course at StreetFrench.org. So first of all, you probably don't want to use inversions like we learned in French class because you're going to sound really old school. You're gonna sound like Shakespeare or something, or like Voltaire. Like I don't know. It's just kind of weird in modern times to talk like that. Like I'm sure it's correct to say "How art thou" in English. Like if someone comes up to me and says that,
you would say that.
No, I'm sure it's correct, like grammatically correct. Like if someone comes up to me and says that, I'll understand what they mean. But no one talks like that anymore, and they sound like really awkward.
So usually, if you're a foreigner in France, we will understand, okay, he's a beginner and he's like talking textbook French, right? But if you're French and you talk like that, it's kind of awkward. It's like automatically shows that you're from a high bourgeoisie.
You're from like the really upper echelon of society or something.
It's really awkward, and especially if someone our age who talks like that. If it's an older person, you can kind of understand, like in his like 70s or 80s, and like from a high, how do you say echelon? So it's a French word, so it's kind
echelon.
of awkward. High echelon.
Like from the upper class.
Yeah. If he's like in his 70s, 80s, like you would understand. But if he's someone our age in the 30s and ask me, peux-tu me filer du feu? Non, c'est bizarre parce que du coup je dis filer, tu vois, ça marche même pas.
And then also if you sound like that, if you use that kind of academic French, you're gonna sound like you don't speak French very well. You're gonna sound like you're not really familiar with the language, and I mean you're gonna give off that kind of vibe. So another thing is that language evolves and it's constantly changing. And I mean, that's one of the main reasons why people don't speak like this. I don't know, it's just kind of awkward. Like it's like people spoke like that 200 years ago. Like same thing in English. If you read the Declaration of Independence or some really old document, it's just different. Like we don't speak like that today. And I mean, it's like that in French as well.
I know some of you maybe don't understand or don't agree with the fact that we want to teach you, like spoken French and how important it is. We really want to stress that it's like so awkward when you ask a question with inversions. So, parles-tu français or d'où viens-tu? It's like so awkward, and it makes it's either like you don't speak French very well or you're like kind of
like stuck up or something, or you come from like this really like super high like class. Yeah, I just feel like a lot of people don't understand that language evolves and it's changing, and that's why the stuff you read in textbooks that they made like 50 years ago, it's different now.
And of course they want to teach the proper way to speak and to be able to read like French literature also. So it's cool that and that you can understand in a book, but understand that spoken French is really different.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, it's really just a personal choice. If you're an older person, if you're in your 60s, 70s, and you want to use inversions, go ahead. I mean, or even if you're younger, you just want to sound like Molière or something, like, that's totally fine. It's your choice. We just want to show you how people speak. Most people speak in modern France today.
Okay, so we'll give you 3 examples of how you can ask a question in French. So let's start with the informal form.
The way that maybe a lot of people would say, the way that I would probably say it is I would ask a question kind of backwards. I would take a statement and just add an inflection and a question mark at the end. I'd say like, tu parles français. Tu parles français? Tu parles français?
Next is something we could call the standard form with est-ce que. So, est-ce que tu parles français?
And this one totally works. I mean, you could ask a question like that. It's not awkward. I do it all the time. Like,
yeah, it's like you can talk like that with anyone.
Yeah, so I use those two. I use like, tu parles français or est-ce que tu parles français?
I guess when I want to be a little bit more polite, I would use est-ce que tu or est-ce que vous. Of course, I will use vous if I want to be polite. But est-ce que vous parlez français?
Yeah, definitely.
But it's still like everyday
it's
language
still,
you can talk. Like you can be with your family or friends.
Still sounds natural.
Yeah.
You can use it in the workplace or whatever. Yeah.
And third is the formal form. So with the same question, you would ask, parles-tu français ou parlez-vous français?
And that's the form that you definitely probably don't want to use in conversation. It just sounds really awkward.
And the problem with this form is that it gets confusing for students because you have to like construct the sentence backwards, and then sometimes because of phonetics you need to add a t, like a t in the middle, and it gets like too confusing for no reason. So for example, if I want to say he speaks French, il parle français, I would ask, il parle français? But in the formal form it would be, parle-t-il français? So it's like, I don't know, it's complicated for no reason.
So I mean, that's probably another reason why French people don't say that in everyday conversation.
Yeah. So for example, we can ask the question, tu travailles où à Paris? Tu travailles où à Paris?
Or où est-ce que tu travailles à Paris?
Yeah, où est-ce que tu travailles à Paris?
What you don't want to say is où travailles-tu à Paris?
Yeah,
Sounds
that's
like,
kind of awkward.
Yeah, like a theater piece or something. So, I mean, you know, it would look something like this. It would say, you would have like the subject, the verb, the WH part, like what, why, where, that sort of thing. And then you have the rest of the sentence, the complément. Yeah, so I just think of it like that. Like I'm taking a statement like you work, and then I just add where at the end, like tu travailles où, or like tu vas où, or on fait comment, et tu pars quand.
Tu pars quand? Ouais.
Il est où? Yeah, I just always think of it like that.
Ouais, on fait quoi?
Ouais,
and the answer will be very easy. It's going to be on fait de la musique ou je travaille à Paris. So the question and the answer like starts the same way, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it just simplifies the language a lot and makes it sound more natural. That's how I hear people speak the language. Like another example, like tu pars quand en vacances? Tu pars quand en vacances? You could also say quand est-ce que tu pars en vacances?
Ouais, quand est-ce que tu pars en vacances? And not quand pars-tu en vacances?
Yeah.
So a question we ask really often when we meet someone for the first time and like we're talking and you want to ask them what they do for work or just in life or in general, we would say, tu fais quoi dans la vie? Tu fais quoi dans la vie? And you can say, qu'est-ce que tu fais dans la vie?
Yeah, those two work, but you wouldn't say, que fais-tu dans la vie?
Yeah, it's kind of awkward.
Yeah. So this is one of my favorite examples of this. Like
in textbooks and in class, you learn, comment t'appelles-tu?
Yeah, that's it. See, we don't use it so much that I even forgot how we learned it in textbooks. So yeah, comment t'appelles-tu? But in real life, what did I say? Tu t'appelles comment? No,
you said comment tu t'appelles.
Oh, yeah.
That works.
Yeah, so it would sound more natural to say comment tu t'appelles.
Or tu t'appelles comment. It's the same thing. You can, like, de comment can go at the beginning or at the end.
Yeah, so that's how I would say it usually, tu t'appelles comment. If you hear someone come up to you and say like, comment t'appelles-tu? Like, what do you think?
Usually I would guess, because if they have an accent, okay, they're foreigners and they're learning and it's fine, I'm not going to say anything, but it's like, oh, okay, he's a beginner.
Yeah.
Or if he's French and he asks me that, I'm kind of like, it's really awkward. I'm really confused. Like, why would he? Okay.
It's funny.
Especially if he's my age.
Yeah.
It's like it's kind of like putting a kind of a distance, like also like a social distance. I don't know. It's very weird to me because I don't come from a very high echelon. But if you live somewhere around Paris in Neuilly or in like kind of richer areas, maybe they speak like that between friends. But I wouldn't know. Like if you're hanging out with like Sarkozy's son over there, or I don't know, maybe they speak like that between them. I'm not sure.
So another example using pourquoi.
So for example, you can ask pourquoi tu travailles pas? And in informal ways, we even drop the ne. So that's something we talk about a lot. So pourquoi tu ne travailles pas? You can say that, or I guess we would say pourquoi tu ne travailles pas? So the ne becomes even shorter. But sometimes we just drop it. Pourquoi tu travailles pas? But the formal way will keep the ne and do the whole like shebang when you when you invert you do the inversion, and it would be pourquoi ne travailles-tu pas? It's so long. It's like kind of even hard for me to like think of the structure. way too awkward, way too fancy.
Yeah, it's funny.
So pourquoi tu travailles pas?
Yeah, way easier, way more simple.
And for those questions, the why questions, pourquoi is always going to be at the beginning. Pourquoi tu fais ça? Pourquoi tu restes à la maison? Pourquoi tu manges pas? So this next set of examples is gonna be with quel.
Yeah.
I guess
So
they all
just,
sound the same.
Yeah, just which.
Which.
Yeah.
Another example would be tu préfères quel plat? Tu préfères quel plat? And I guess you would learn quel plat préfères-tu? So it's like totally backwards. Like.
Yeah. Let's say, quel âge avez-vous? Quel âge avez-vous? Like we would learn something like that in school, but most of the time you'd say, vous avez quel âge?
Next example is il parle quelle langue? Il parle quelle langue? And the formal, super formal way would be quelle langue parle-t-il? Quelle langue parle-t-il?
Yeah, can you guys even hear how like unnecessarily fancy it sounds? Like
yeah, I guess fancy is a good word. It's like way too fancy.
So yeah, that just about wraps up this video. I mean, if you guys have any questions or you've had any experiences with this, let us know down in the comments below.
Or if there's examples we didn't give here in this video, you can ask us below also.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Okay. Salut. Bye-bye.
Again, a real special thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. If anyone else is interested in supporting the whole Street French project, you can head on to our Patreon account and help us over there.